Jim Ziegler, incredible broadcast for you today. The road to the sale. Now I know you probably heard the road to the sale is dead. Well, the road to the sale didn't die. We just changed it around. We took the steps out of order. We put technology into the process. So the expert panel today, starting with a guest panelist, Peter Smith from Lion Partnership. Hello, Peter.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me. I really feel honored to be on your show here today.
Well, we wanted to have the international flair. Peter's a Canadian, and I've long advocated invading Canada.
You should.
Jason's off today, so we pulled in another Canadian.
Anyway, the king of reinsurance. This man is an author. He's a consultant. He's a product salesperson. I'm talking about my friend Max Zanan. Hey, big guy.
Hey, Jim. Great to be here. This is show number 97.
Is it really?
97.
Yeah, time flies.
We're
Wow.
closing in on number 100. I mean, I've been watching some of the past broadcasts. Incredible. And I always say this, one of the most brilliant people in the car business, the queen of BDC, my friend Bobbie Herron.
Hello, hello. It's nice to see you today. 97, that's crazy.
97 weeks we've done this. We only postponed it for 1 week, if you'll recall.
I do recall. Yeah.
There was only
Wow.
1 week we didn't actually have the broadcast.
That's crazy to think of. We're going to do something big for the 100th episode. I feel like we need to get like Jimmy Kimmel involved. Like things need to get real.
Well, anyway, when I first got into car business 48 years ago, I was broke, I was divorced, I was depressed. I had just taken a motorcycle, went all the way to California, stayed out in California with the hippies for a couple months, came back, and I had been a radio executive, and I walked into a car dealership and said, I'd like to be a car salesman. 1976.
Oh.
And they put me in a room with a bunch of Jackie B. Cooper beta videotapes. And they said, do not come out till you are fully trained.
Right. Good luck. Sink or swim. We still do
Yeah.
that.
They gave me a 10 key and an order pad, and they taught me something called the road to the sale. Meet and greet the customer, establish a relationship, select the vehicle, present the vehicle, demonstrate the vehicle, write up and negotiate the deal, TO to finance with a quality turnover, deliver the car the way the factory wants the car delivered, and follow up. Max, was that what you were taught?
I want to say yes, but unfortunately, the answer is a categorical no.
Really?
So, really, when I was hired as a salesperson, the first thing they told me to do is to watch suckers.
I experienced that as well.
Okay, and that was the ultimate training manual.
Think they're ever going to
Okay.
update that movie?
You know
Now,
what?
how about-
That's a number of my guys too.
Well-
Right, I'm not the only one. I know it for sure.
Peter, how did you learn the road to the sale? What was your initial foray into retail?
My initial foray into retail was, there's your desk, there's the keys, there's the dealer plates, there's the cars, go drive them. And if you have any questions, come see me. And don't let anybody leave without talking to me. End
Right.
of story. That was it. Brochure
Don't come
comes
up
over
to the
there.
desk without a deposit.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
don't even think about talking to me if you don't have a check.
Oh, customers are like plastic Coca-Cola bottles. No deposit, no return.
Yeah.
I don't remember that part.
Bobbie, you were in retail. What did you learn? How did they teach
Oh.
you to sell cars?
Well, my first step in was you're too young and the wrong gender, but you can sit in a back corner and call every service customer, answer every call, and put the boys' plates on for them. That's how my road to retail started. But in coming into that, I was really blessed with some awesome mentors in the business who lent me the education that they had. So I got pretty lucky. And then we went right into the Jackie B. Coopers and the Bob Kings and the, all the jazz, but it didn't start that way.
Well, meet and greet the customer all the way through, deliver and follow up. Those are not bad steps to a sale, but we've added some technology into those steps, and a lot of the techies today say, well, the road to the sale is dead. But it didn't really die. We replaced it with technology enhancements. What do you think, Bobbie?
Absolutely. I mean, we streamlined the effectiveness of our communication with customers, and that was a big part of it, but it was eliminating steps that were no longer necessary. I mean, if you think about the road to the sale now, the majority of it is completed before a customer ever enters our showroom. So it's not that they've gone away; it's that the customer has chosen to take those steps differently, and we had to adapt.
I don't totally agree with that, and you know that.
I know, and that's why this is a beautiful conversation, right? Because we don't have to.
Yeah, I hear that, and that's a typical techie answer. Well, we do all the road to the sale online. No, we don't.
Well, it's the little stuff,
at least half of the people walk in a dealership and never contact the dealership first.
It's not just the contact. It's not just the contact, though. It's the viewing of vehicles. It used to be that a customer had to pull onto the lot and drive through to view vehicles and to get an idea of where they wanted to be, or to start to add or eliminate vehicles from their search. And we would walk them around 100 different cars. We did things like park it in the front, drive them past service, make sure you mention it's their service drive, devalue the trade by parking next to it. All of these things that we now do digitally. Do we still need to confirm them? Yes. Do we still need to have those conversations? Absolutely. But did the customer choose to eliminate a large portion of the time that was required to complete those steps? 100%. And now they get frustrated when we try to redo those steps with them when it's unnecessary, when they have to repeat themselves 20 times. That's a big part of the road to the sale.
So one of those issues there, and I agree with it. We've reduced the timing necessary for the customer to complete the sale. We've gone from about a 3.5 hour in dealership experience down to the customer wants it under 45 minutes now. That's their want. So technology has helped us in that aspect, but technology is also being a thorn in the side of dealerships on the presence of absolute transparency. And transparency has caused the race to the bottom. It hasn't caused any benefit to the dealership in that aspect. But where I find technology is actually being beneficial is in data capture. So we can actually learn more about that customer so we can serve them better in a long-term customer value situation. And that is what's going to be successful in the future, in my opinion. It's all about long-term customer value rather than acquisition. It's retention.
Max?
Listen, I think there are two issues here. You have to follow the money, right? And the technology providers are always going to be saying that, the process has changed, everything is online. What Jim is saying is that at the end of the day, this is a belly-to-belly business. And yes, you can do a lot of things online, but at the end of the day, you have to come to the showroom. You have to be met and you have to be greeted by a human being. You have to go on a test drive. You have to do all of these steps. The other issue here is that during the last 2.5 years, the road to the sale has been destroyed by the inventory shortage. We didn't need any steps to the sale. The only thing you needed to say is, Mr. Customer, Miss Customer, I have the car on my lot. If you get here in the next 7 minutes, it is yours for only $17,000 over sticker.
Only.
Right?
Exactly.
That was the only step to the sale.
Max.
For $17,000 over sticker, he's not wrong.
Now, as the inventory is coming back, none of it works. You have to go back to the basics.
They don't know how to sell cars today. They've forgotten not just the process, the meet and greet. I mean, whether or not you are an A to Z store where the salesperson does everything with very little management interaction, or whether the management are doing a TO desk closer type situation, they don't know how to sell cars. They don't
Well,
know
they
why you do things. Why does the
yeah,
customer drive the car? Bobbie, why does the customer drive the car?
customer has to drive the car so that you know what the hot spots are, then they can feel it, own it, smell it, breathe in it, and have it be theirs. It's the same reason we used to pull the car up next to the trade, but we stopped doing that too, and that was before COVID. I mean,
You see,
it's unpopular what I'm going to say, which is this, is that uh, the old road to the sale has its benefits, and there's a lot of basics about it that need to be incorporated in. And the road to the sale currently, I won't say the new one, but what's commonly being used now is definitely incorrect. But there is a balance between the two that is where we are going to end up. We're not still selling to just 50-year-old plus anymore, and 50-year-old plus followed that old road to the sale. But this new generation, and it's not even new anymore. I'm talking about 23-year-olds who are buying their first car, who are coming out of college, and who are going to buy their first new car in the next 3 to 4 years. And the people that are around them, people that are my age that are buying cars, people that are 10 years
well, you
younger
know,
than
I
me that
don't
are
agree
buying
with
cars.
any of this.
I know. And that's okay, right? But that's the beautiful thing about conversations like this, is that none of us are right. The data is right. We infuse our opinion into the data, into what our reference points are, and that
Well,
doesn't
you
make
better
any of us
look at
correct.
the data, because people are buying 2/3 of the cars they own in a lifetime after age 50.
That might be 2/3 of the cars they own in a lifetime, but they're buying one of the cars
Uh-huh.
before that, and they're establishing relationships. This generation, this millennial generation, which isn't even the new one, we don't buy that
They
same
live in
way.
mom's basement on a sofa and play Xbox. What are you talking about?
Listen, I'm a high six-figure earner who doesn't live in my mom's basement, but does love a trophy and
Millennial,
owns my
quit
own
it.
company, and I'm not 50, and I'm your primary target. I'm an influencer in the decision who makes the household decisions. I'm the primary earner in a single household, and I'm the target for every OEM. And I don't buy cars that way. That doesn't mean that that's the right way, that the way that I want to do it is the right way. What it does mean is that you as a dealer should give the option for me to choose to buy a vehicle the way that I want to. You can incorporate your process into it. I want to meet and greet. I want to feel important. I want to pull in and see that my car that I wanted to look at is pulled up front because I value time and convenience. That doesn't mean that you have to skip steps, but it does mean that you have to
That's your
adapt.
problem, Bobbie, because you're relating it to you. You are not your average customer.
Well,
I
I don't
am not your
know.
average customer. Max nor Peter. None of us are your average
None
customer.
of you,
Peter,
none of you want to pull up and have the car waiting in the front for you with a sign with your name on it that says this is the car that you called about and you were looking for. And as a dealer, don't you want to have the
I
trade-in
want my
proof right next to
salesman to
it?
make a profit too.
I'm
Bobbie,
fine with my salesperson making a profit.
Bobbie, in the last 6 months, I've purchased 2 cars,
Mhm.
and in both scenarios, I knew exactly what I wanted. Now, being in the business, obviously, I did know what I wanted, and I made the conversation very easy with the
Yeah,
dealership. And the 2 dealerships were polar opposites in experience from each other. One was a
sure,
pre-owned car, and one was a new car. The new car was
sure.
absolutely awful. The pre-owned car was seamless, frictionless, and simple.
Right.
The new car guy not only kept on piling on fees, packing the deal,
Mhm.
and the worst part about it is, this is a crazy one. I worked for the dealership. I bought 7 cars from the dealership prior. I probably referred 50 clients there.
Yeah.
One of my closest friends was president of the brand. I could
Right.
buy it for cost, and I walked in there and I said, just sell it to me for MSRP. That's it. That's all I ask. Here's my credit card. I want that car right there.
Yeah.
Nope. And I could have bought it for cost, but I'd have to wait 2 months to get it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not arguing that point at all. I mean, people think that when I defend a new style of something, that it's like, I'm like, oh, you should be able to do absolutely everything online and like never talk to anybody. But that's the closed-minded side of it, is that like there is a balance here. There is all of the things that exist for the road to the
Okay,
sale
so
that
the
people want are already there.
customer
It's already
doesn't
happening.
the customer doesn't need to drive the car. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, well,
I'm not saying the customer doesn't need to drive the car. I'm saying the customer doesn't need to pull on the lot and look at 65 cars to add and eliminate what they want on their list.
I
The
don't think
customer
I
needs
said
to.
that either.
And I'm not saying see, this is where it always goes wrong with this conversation, though, is that I'm not contesting what you guys are saying.
Mhm.
What I'm saying is there are elements of it that already
I
exist, like
respect
getting
your
a
right to
trade-in.
be wrong.
I know, right? What I'm saying is there are things like trade-in tools that already exist online. The old road to the sale meant that you had to do a full trade-in appraisal on site. Now you have to confirm data on a trade-in. You have to make sure it's still the right car, that nothing was missed, that it was priced correctly. Those are the differences. These are small little tweaks that get fought so hard. They already exist.
Well,
They're
once
already
again,
happening.
one thing most people in the car business have to understand is we are not your average customers.
Agreed.
We are not, none of us. And when we
No.
say, well, this is the way I would do it, or this is the way I do it, no, it's
Yeah.
irrelevant. Not
Yeah, I
relevant
don't disagree
in
with you.
any way. Because we are not, remember, I deal with what most of the people do most of the time.
Right.
Why? And if I'm managing a sales force, I'm going to have 3 cars that waiting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have the car they inquired on,
Sure.
and I'm not going to put a sign on it because I'm going to have 2 other cars. I'm going to have a program car that's a step down, probably more profit, and I'm going to have a car with more equipment than they asked for because I know for a fact that most people do not get the car they inquired on.
But that's the process change that's been happening, is that's what's not happening anymore. So I agree with you. I always do 2 cars of some sort, right? I do a sign, not on the car, in front of the car, so the customer knows where to go. NADA says one of the number 1 complaints by customers is that they don't know where to go when they get to the dealership. So setting that up correctly and leading them to exactly what you're talking about. You know me, I believe in old age tactics with new school techniques. And so
Bobbie, I'm just
you do pull it
messing
up.
with you.
I know you are, but for the audience, like, I think that's important and people are skipping it now. They're not teaching salespeople why we did that. Why did we do that? We did that to justify the cost, the price, and the difference in the vehicle. We had them park next to it rather than doing a trade kicker walk, so that every time they looked up in
That
the
goes
desk,
as
they
far
saw
back
it.
as the old APB, automotive profit builders
Yeah.
from the 70s.
Old school
And I'm
techniques
telling
with
you,
new school technology. And
I was
they're not doing it
fortunate-
anymore.
I was fortunate early on. I had a mentor, Jackie B. Cooper. He and I hung around a bit. And I got to know Jackie quite well. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a trainer in the business. That's when I decided I wanted to be more than in the business the rest of my life, the
Right.
retail side. Let's go back to meet and greet the customer. So I agree that most of that is done. And Max, you and Peter can jump in here at any time. You know that. But meet and greet the customer, most of that's taken up. If they're going to contact the dealership with technology, it's going to be online. It's going to be through the BDC. So the BDC is a salesperson, Bobbie?
Well, I mean, everybody's a salesperson in a dealership all the time anyways, every interaction that we have with the customer. And I am an advocate for both BDC, hybrid, and a sales team working leads. It depends on the process of the store and what their market looks like and how it works. You don't necessarily have to have a BDC to accomplish the same thing, but you do have to have accountability, KPIs, and requirements.
So
Now, Steve Chesson on the sidebar says, do it yourself online, click selling, self-research loses more than it gets. Every customer should be interacting virtually. Any management can review. Okay. Digital retail crashed. It's a great tool to use to work a deal face-to-face or to work a deal online, but there's got to be somebody working the digital retail because customers aren't transacting by themselves.
the first thing
So,
in
Jim, I don't think digital retail crashed. You know, in order for it to crash,
It had
to exist.
It had to exist. Yes.
so
Right.
what-
It never ever existed. And the great hope was that when COVID happened, that people would be so paranoid to leave their house that they would have no choice but to transact online. Unfortunately, you know, again, for all these technology companies, you know, they underestimate human nature, you know, and we're social animals. And no matter what kind of a pandemic there is, we're going to go into the dealership and we're going to kick tires and we're going to bargain and we're going to interact with other people.
what
Go ahead,
So I
Peter.
don't think
one of the things I look at this on the whole process front is that as trainers, coaches, management, whatever you want to call us, we have to teach 2 things. One is critical thinking, and the other is empathy. If we understand critical thinking and we can basically think on our feet and be able to empathize with what the customer is telling us at all times, whether they're telling it to us online, in the store, on the street, wherever. We can redirect that information to a positive effect at the dealership. It doesn't matter. I couldn't care less if you didn't want to ever step in front of the dealership. We've all had customers call up and say, "Hey, do you got that blue one in stock? Great. Can you send it to the house? I'll give you a check for it." And I've also had the guy that's come into the dealership and spent 8 hours there picking out everything and being very technical about everything because they were spending every cent they had to buy the new car. And so you have to be empathetic. You also, one of the great things I looked at in the process control was get a matrix of pricing out for your sales team. I worked for Volvo, and Volvo had a very unique pricing process that they had a stepped profitability scale on their cars for the dealership level. The entry cars were half the profit percentage as the top cars. So when you actually discounted the top cars just a bit, they leased out exactly the same price as the entry cars. And if you took that critical thinking and you said to the customer, "Hey, Mr. Customer, long-term value, I'm going to give you an XC90 for the price of an XC40. How would you like that?" They're not going nowhere. But that critical thinking, pivoting on your feet, allowing that knowledge to take place, that it was the same price, and the process, it didn't matter about the process at that point. It was all that you just gave them double their value.
What's the bullet points? It's a bullet points in the process, right?
Today's salespeople aren't selling the car; they're selling the deal.
Yeah,
they're not. All the conversations about the deal. A salesperson will let's pretend that this customer was a walk-on, as opposed to came in through the BDC, came in through a phone call, came in through an internet lead, a cars.com lead, whatever. They actually physically walked on the lot. A salesperson, I'm telling you, 30 seconds into the conversation, what's your budget? What do you want to spend? What a dumbass question that is.
Nothing.
What do you want to spend? I mean, I can't believe. What's your budget?
As little as possible.
Tell me a number you made up on the exit ramp. I'm serious. I mean,
which is why we don't walk them across the lot, so they can do beer budget budgets on champagne tastes, and we lose them that way. But so, it does matter in the process. It's buckets of things. It's meet and greet. It's all these things live in a bucket, and then emotional intelligence within them allows for you to dynamically move between those steps inside of the process, whether they start online or they start on the lot. You never know where they started until you get to start the interaction. But process is key, because you walk into a lot of dealers still, and here's what you hear: who's your competitor? You can ask most sales managers, not all, who their competitors are, their true competitors. And what they'll tell me is the competitors they hear about on their floor, who they think their competitors are, but not the people who were their competitor before the customer chose to actually walk in or set the appointment or come to the dealership. Very rarely is that ever the conversation that happens. And we have all the data, non-opinion, on every website with all those tools to be able to know that. And so it's a shame to me that the two things aren't mixed in together and all of those tools aren't utilized. A cars.com customer is different than a website customer. It's the same customer, but they're typically at a different step in the journey, and or the question, the button that they picked is different. And that data is not stuff that you have when a customer just walks on the lot blindly. It's the difference between saying, do you want a customer who you have to knock down every wall and create every interaction immediately because they've never happened, or here's a book of information about this customer, how to communicate with them, how to have a conversation with them, and how to use emotional intelligence to move them to the next step. And personally, I'd rather have the book of information. To me, that seems smarter and more efficient.
They sold you stop. They sold you a bag of
They didn't
goods.
sell me anything. I've been on these boards for years.
A website customer is different from a cars.com customer, but it's the same customer.
Let me rephrase that. Okay, look, let's use something different here. Let's use this. A customer that is on a billboard product, a third-party product that is still sorting in between all the different vehicles they're looking at, that sends in a lead. I hate that word, a lead, to the dealership. it is the same customer that at some point will potentially send in a trade-in evaluation from the website, but they are typically at different parts of the journey. And how you know where they're at in the journey is by utilizing the information you have on them. Where were they at? Do you have a tool on your website that tells you the last 3 steps that they effectively took and what they moved through? You can't tell me for 1 second as a desk manager that if I'm the salesperson going back and forth with you to negotiate a deal and I tell you that the customer was a trade evaluation customer, that's not smart data to have, because that means that as you negotiate, if you're having to go down, you're not stripping it from the price of the car. You're focused on the trade. So that you're not
We got Wendy Reeves on the sidebar agreeing with Bobbie. Wendy,
because it's
Wendy quit it.
Yes, Wendy is right.
Wendy, how much Bobbie paid you for that comment?
It is the process that we use. The process that we use does not have to be stuck to one process. There are bullet points, and within those bullet points, you can move. And I agree with Peter, you have to use emotional intelligence in order to do that. If I know you're a trade-in customer and you didn't have to tell me, I can focus on your trade in a way that is different than I focus on the new car. Once I've got you chosen on a car and set on a car and we're talking numbers, why would I be discounting the price of the car or the lease instead of focusing on evaluating an increase on the trade? We both know those numbers come from wherever we want them to. It's just how we show them.
We're getting way off track with the road to the sale is still the subject. The subject is, okay, we talked about meet and greet the customer, establish a relationship. How many of our salespeople don't even know who their people are? They're walking around with somebody, they don't even know their name. How many times have I been on the sales desk and I've asked a salesperson, what's this customer's name?
75%.
They don't know. They don't know. I mean, there are 4 things that'll get you close to any human being on earth. Four subjects of conversation, whether it's on the keyboard, whether it's on the telephone, whether it's in person. Family, occupation, recreation, motivation, the 4 things you can talk about. And salespeople don't have the interpersonal skills to do this. They've never been trained to even care what the people think, who they are. You're talking empathy. They haven't got empathy because the salespeople are so afraid of the money. Because I'm going to say something that's original Ziegler, but listen to what I'm about to say. Most salespeople and most managers, many managers, are afraid of the money because they personally couldn't buy the car they're selling.
That's pretty much all there on a lot of case scenarios. But
isn't it?
It's a fear factor. People have a fear of this instant gratification that everybody wants. The salesperson wants the instant gratification of a sale. The customer wants instant gratification of the information so they can leave. Everyone wants this instant gratification that they get what they want so they can disappear and go back to their safe spot. And we got to turn around and use the steps to the sale to create the relationship again, because we lost it with technology driving it to a transactional sale. And we need
technology made it about the money. But you know what, Peter? This is in the last 6 months, 2 years, all of a sudden we found out we could sell a car for all the money and people would pay it. And as soon as we found out that people would pay all the money, damned if the manufacturers didn't come in and scoop it up and raise the prices again, and raise the prices again, especially Farley at Ford. When they found out that they could charge more for the cars, they raised the prices. And it wasn't inflation. I mean, inflation's running rampant, but the cars have gone up way more than inflation. It wasn't parts or supply chain. No, it was pure dumbass greed. Bobbie?
Nobody ever likes it when I say this. It's always interesting to me because we always blame technology for why we've gotten to where we are. But the truth is that customers have asked for answers that we in the past were afraid to give. Don't tell them the price, they're going to shop you. They already are. Don't tell them the trade. They're going to shop you. They already are. And then we wonder how we went from back in the day, we used to do that, but we also taught relationship and communication
Full
skills to our
price is a fair
salespeople.
price.
We don't teach that anymore. I triple dog dare you to walk into any dealership and ask any salesperson under 15 years why we slide the paper across and shut our mouth when we present numbers. Without giving them a leader, I triple dog dare you why. Over 15 to 20 years is going to tell you why, because we control the outcome and we don't offer an objection for the customer to lead with. The rest of them, we're not taught. It was because I said so, and now they don't understand why. So when you're not looking, they do it anyways. And so what has happened as a result of that lack of training and that lack of emotional intelligence that's been shown, or how to build a relationship, it didn't happen in the last 2 years. It happened in the last 12. The last 2 years just gave us something to blame it on.
I see managers at the desk doing their
It
most
is true.
brilliant. I see
Bobby,
managers doing
Bobby,
their
when
most-
was the internet invented?
Like 30 plus years ago.
I
Yeah,
see
but when
man-
did it become
I see-
mainstream?
the
12 years
internet's
ago.
not going to last.
12
That's
years
what
ago, the internet became mainstream, and when it became mainstream, transparency came out, and it quickly started the race to the bottom. And
I think it just showcased it. I don't think it
Yeah.
caused it. I don't think that people changed that much that they went, all of a sudden this is different. I think they had a way to say this is what we want, and now it's shown it to us. And look, I'm all about
Listen.
like holding gross on the deal, and I'm all about closing deals. I don't just teach BDC. I teach how to close an emotional intelligence and communication based on psychology. So I'm not just pulling this out of my ass anywhere, but from being on dealership lots all the time and from consistently doing this, I'm telling you that looking at data shows that it didn't just come from technology. Yes, there are pieces that are frustrating. Process needs to happen in every part of our business, regardless, no matter what. It needs to be implemented. We need to use data, not opinion, to decide it. And then we need to hold our people accountable, or we need to fire them for not listening. I am all the way in
But
on
guys,
that.
I also think that all these technology providers, right, they do have an agenda and they manipulate statistics, right? And because of that, people like Bobby think that Cars.com customer is different from the website customer, and that customer is
Don't
different from
change the
CarGurus
words, the
customer.
part of the journey the customer is in.
Right, journey, whatever the terminology is. At the end of the day, in order for you to make a sale, believe it or not, the customer needs to be in the showroom.
I'm not saying that they don't have to. I'm saying give them an option to
That's
buy
like
how
a
they
fact of
want.
life, guys. Somebody's got to sign some paperwork somewhere,
Yeah.
right? So if you for a second forget the journey, right, we have to go back to the basics. And the basics are very, very simple. You have to have social skills.
Agreed.
You have to know how to work a deal face to face. And you have to stop believing nonsense that Generation Z buys differently from millennials, and millennials buy differently from Generation X, and Generation X buys differently from boomers, right? None of it is true. As a former general manager, I will tell you this. Your dealership is your house. You make the rules. You know, when you get to the emergency room, nobody says, Bobby, are you a Generation Z patient? Are you a millennial? Are you a Generation Xer, or are you a boomer? The triage is the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
As a
It's no
former
different than automotive
general
retail.
manager, same as you, as a former operations director, over 25 plus stores where I oversaw the general managers. Same. I'm not saying that it has to be different or that the dealership can't produce its own rules. What I'm saying is whatever process the dealership decides to implement, utilizing the data that they have, they need to stick to it. They need to use the process that they have and the bullet points within, and they need to hold people accountable, and they need to stick to it. If you don't want to be a dealership that offers digital retailing, guess what? You don't have to. If you don't believe that it works, you don't have to. But you will miss a portion of opportunity from a customer who is looking for a dealership who offers that. Does that mean that if 3 people want to work with a dealership that offers digital retailing, you won't get an option with any of those? No, it doesn't mean that. And I'd be a liar if I told you it did. I'm not AI in my head. I don't know the answer to that. I will tell you that there is a percentage of people that you lose an opportunity to sell to. I don't think you need to let technology sell cars for you. I think you need to allow technology the ability to start a conversation that allows you to create one. That's it.
Okay, now that we've gotten that off our chest, now that we're beyond that, select a vehicle, present the vehicle. What about the walk around? How important is the walk around today, Max?
Listen, Jim, I think you and I might be in the same boat here, right? To me, it's as important as it's always been, right? Because it's very difficult to do a walk around online. Yes, you can send a video. Yes, you can send a cartoon.
Nobody
you can send a
watches the
smoke.
videos, by the way.
Right. You can send a smoke signal.
People
Listen,
don't
I don't
watch
care
the
what you
videos.
send.
Some people watch the
At the
videos,
end of
most
the-
do not.
Correct. At the end of the day, the most effective walk around happens when the customer is next to you. That's what I mean. We have to have the customer in the showroom to complete the sale. And the walk around is way
Get 'em
more
in.
effective when the customer can sit behind the steering wheel, right? When the customer can see the size of the trunk, or how spacious the back seat is, or what type of entertainment system the vehicle has, or what type of safety features the vehicle has. So the point that I'm trying to make is that there are, let's call them classics, right? They're classical steps to the sale. And all of these steps take place in the showroom face to face. Yes, you can make a phone call, and yes, you can make an appointment online through text, through email. But at the end of the day, right, you take the inventory shortage out of the equation, we're back to square one. The dealer has the car, he needs the customer in the showroom to complete the sale. Everything else is a pure fantasy. Everything else is 1.5% of your sales. So if I'm a dealer or I'm a general manager, and I'm risking losing 1.5% of my customers because they're going to go buy a Tesla, so be it. Let me focus on the 98.5% of customers that will step into my showroom and that will follow the rules of the game that I set in my house.
Two things there. How many times have you asked the customer to go get their golf clubs out of their trunk to bring them into the car that they're looking at, so make sure that they fit? Can't do it on a computer. You just can't do that. So
No, you
yes,
can't.
walk
No,
There's a
you
tool for that now.
there-
after that.
There is. There's
there-
an app for that.
there is a
So
deep-
when you have that,
Peter-
that's one thing. That interaction is so imperative that you can actually physically do that with the customer and build that thought process of mental ownership. The second thing is, you want to talk about digital retailing and Teslas. I went to Tesla and bought my Tesla at their service center, but I had to go on my phone and buy it, even though I was sitting in their showroom. Now, how stupid is that? But that's the case. So we got to go back to the accountability of the process. We got to hold our teams accountable for moving through the process with the customer.
Well, one thing we know for
We're in
a fact
agreement there.
is that the brain is divided into two hemispheres. And we know for a fact that the right brain is the emotional brain, and we know for a fact that the left brain is the logical brain. And the customer comes in their logical mind. They're all about the logic, the price, all the logical things. I have to convert that customer to their emotional mind, because the emotional mind has no words.
No
There are
boundaries.
no words in your emotional mind. It operates completely on pictures. Max, Bobbie, I'll ask you this. Have you ever had a dream, and it was a very emotional dream, and you woke up out of that dream and you were in a sweat? It was scary, but you didn't remember what it was about?
Oh, sure. I think that everybody's experienced
because
that.
that brain, that was a left brain, or excuse me, a right-brained dream, and it was all in visuals, but it was not in words. You couldn't put words to it. And I got to get the customer to transfer to a right-brained experience, and people don't get that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
They
you.
want to hit them. They want to bombard them with logic, and that's what technology did. Bombarded them with logic. Peter, take it.
Well,
Yeah, Peter, good luck. Take it. Let's talk about it.
well, I'll tell you what, emotional will always overpower logical, and it's very simple. You can apply it to anything in life. It can be applied to purchasing. It can be applied to what you're gonna watch on TV, what you're gonna eat in a restaurant. It's feeling based. It's the exact opposite of my good friend Brooke Furness, where she says it's fact, not feelings. This is feelings, not facts, because we don't live by facts at that point.
No,
We're
we
buying
don't.
things. We're buying things because we want them. It's rarely on need. Like, I didn't need what I bought. I bought it because I wanted it, and that was it. And when I purchased my last 2 cars, I wanted them.
Mm-hmm.
If I was smart and I wanted, it was based for purely need based, I'd buy either a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla, because they're the best tools in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, everything else is a want base, because we want a convertible, we want a SUV, we want an electric car, we want this, we want that. It has nothing to do with logic. It's want.
You mean nobody needs a Porsche GTS?
I need one too. I kind of need one right now. But don't you think it's ironic that and maybe it doesn't feel this way to you guys, but just from like this kind of conversation, for example, we've spent 40 minutes debating the need for technology in our road to the sale instead of adapting and saying the road to the sale, when somebody gets to the store, is still necessary. And the parts that go in them didn't change because of technology entirely. We don't not need to show cars. We don't not need to do test drives. We just have more information at hand, and we don't have to spend as much time on something we already know that the customer is closed on, and instead we can focus on what they
Bobbie,
do.
I agree with you. The problem that I see here is that the technology providers are influencing the conversation by saying that this is the new way that customers prefer to buy cars. They're manipulating statistics, because at the end of the day, every single customer, regardless of the generation, went into the showroom and bought the car the same way that all of us.
Well, they had to, but because that's the only thing that's an option.
Exactly.
And that's fine. But and I'm not saying that's not fine, but here's where I want everybody to kind of open their minds a little bit. Rather than blaming the lack of appropriate process in a store and its enforcement on technology, why don't we think about for a second that stores that do and don't have technology right now aren't doing appropriate steps to the sale. They're not meeting the customer at the door. They're not showing up in a positive mindset. They're not isolating the vehicle from the others on the lot. They're not isolating the trade-in so that they can park right next to it and do a true trade walk, not this bullcrap one that we see everywhere. They're not driving past the service drive and showing them the importance of it. We're fighting with salespeople to book first oil changes. Why are we doing that? Because they don't understand.
Where are you going to get all this time in that 45 minutes, Bobbie?
I never said that 45 minutes was the number.
Where
Actually, the industry says, I don't think that 45 minutes is the number.
The manufacturers want the sale in less than 45 minutes.
But we don't have to agree that something can be adapted to agree. We don't have to agree with all the other facts that are given. A lot of the things are done before. It doesn't take 7 hours to buy a car. That's ridiculous. And some customers might want it to be that way, but you can do something as simple as saying to the customer who you're trying to get to come in, or who's just shown up on your lot and says, how long will this take?
Who slows the sale down?
That this is the timeline. Both.
Who slows the sale down, the customer or the
Both
dealership?
of them do. Both of them do. The customer has to repeat themselves oftentimes, many times. The dealership often has involved in their process no empowerment for somebody to actually answer a question, like Peter said, about knowing the two variables between that high lease and that low lease. Why isn't that information already shared? Why are you hiring and putting people in front of people that you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to get in, who aren't empowered or intelligent enough in your own mind to have a true conversation and build a relationship? Because if that's what you're doing, shame on you. You're hiring the wrong people.
That's because we orientate people, we don't onboard them.
Agreed. I agree with you.
And on that, it's also the dealers, and I get in a lot of trouble for this, is I say, how many times do we drive down the dealership auto malls, and how many names are on the dealership walls that are the person's names? That's an ego-driven thing rather than a opportunity thing. So if we look at egos, the dealerships, how many times, this is the way we've always done it. We've done it this way forever, and we're successful. I had a conversation with a dealer just recently that has 7 rooftops of all premium brands, is one of the largest dealers. And when I talk to him about something, he goes, we're the best operators. Now, in doing that, I turned around and did a digital scrape of his dealerships versus the other brands or the other opportunities or the other dealerships in the area. And it was 72 dealerships I did a digital scrape on of 32 KPIs. Not one of those dealerships was over 29% effective. They all failed. Every single one of them. Yeah. So you want to talk
perception is reality, right? He thinks he's the best operator.
They don't even understand technology on most case scenarios. So technology doesn't means squat. It's actually process.
Well, first of all, if I had to pick between technology and process, I'll tell you hands down, I'm always going to pick process. I'm process driven, process oriented. I believe in using technology, though, to find the data that's needed and to implement more efficient ways to help the customer in the areas that we don't need. I want to know if you're a trade-in buyer before you have to tell me. I want to know if you're an interest rate buyer. I want to know that the video I sent you of the walk around that you don't think matters, that you paused 4 times on the backup camera, and then at that point you sent it to somebody else. What does that tell me about a hotspot for a customer? It doesn't mean when they come in I don't do it. It does, however, mean that I have a place to start the conversation and knock down those walls just a little bit faster.
How many times does that information get back to you as a salesperson?
Depending on the technology you're using, a lot. I mean, there's multiple video apps that the salesperson, when they send a video, has complete access to that, and all you do is click a button and it tells you.
How many
you can even have it integrated back in? Probably not a lot. I mean, but we're not talking about. But we're not talking about what will people do. We're talking about what people should do, and there's a variable there. There's lots of frustrating things that salespeople, sales managers, and GMs do, and owners do that they should be doing differently. That's the point of the conversation. And I'm not trying to wildly throw things out in theory. I'm not even disagreeing with any of the three of you.
It comes down to what should be done and what isn't done. And one of the things is dealers should hire experts to help them mitigate through the process.
Agreed.
But they don't do it. Why? Because they feel that hiring experts is a waste of money because they
know it all. Because they know it all.
Exactly.
They are the best operators. Guys, come on. They all invented the car business.
Well,
every one of them.
If that was the case, I wouldn't have a successful company. So experts and dealers do hire people that want to help them learn things, just not every one of them do, right? I don't disagree with you guys, but this is part of it, is that we have to slow down for a minute and listen to people and hear what they're saying. We're all on the same page. I agree in process and old school road mapping. I also think that technology is important.
There's 20,000 new car dealerships in North America, of which I can almost guarantee, without even getting data or extrapolated from the NADA or anyone else, that there will be probably less than 5% of dealer principals operating those dealerships that will go to the outside route for assistance.
That sounds right. I don't know the number.
We'll sit, and that's where we become successful, because we have that opportunity for 5%. 5% of 20,000 dealerships is 1,000 dealerships. So there is opportunity for experts to come in, but the opportunity should be that much greater. Go back to any sports team. You have trainers, you have managers, you have coaches, you have all these things to lead you to a championship. Why can't the owners hire these people? Why don't the owners of dealerships hire these people? It's crazy, if you ask me.
The whole thing is crazy most of the time. I mean, not to get too far off of this roadmap, though, because I think that part of it, what you're saying, is true, and part of it is being able to learn these additional points, or have this show does so well with our dealer audience and our executive audience because of this, because we don't all agree on it. And what comes from it is, I'm not right and you're not right, and I'm not wrong and you're not wrong. And what works best for them, they are allowed to now take and try to implement and or further the conversation. The same thing is true for their customers. The same thing is true with the road to the sale. All the bullet points from the road to the sale have not changed. They just look different. They encompass different things. Some of them have become easier and some harder.
In most cases, I'm right.
I agree with you, man.
I agree with that. I mean,
yeah.
Max, you are absolutely my hero.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. But I think Peter made a great point about the 5%. And I think these 5% are laughing all the way to the bank because the other 95% are completely asleep. This is no different than Jiffy Lube and car dealership service department. All the guys at Jiffy Lube, every day, they wake up and pitch themselves, thinking, how am I in business, right? The only thing I can do is change oil, and the only reason I'm in business is because the dealers cannot make an appointment, right? That's the only reason.
Max, why do I have a reputation for growing dealerships to the big numbers? Not because I know things other people don't know, but I do things other people don't do. I mean,
but I think what Peter is saying is that you, Jim,
the big numbers through the years, and
right.
And I can't tell you how many dealerships we've taken from 500 units to 1,000, from 250 units to 500, and
but
you don't need to stick up on the numbers either. You can do it overnight.
Yeah, but Jim, I guarantee you that whether you take them from 500 to 1,000 or 200 to 400, you end up working with the same 5% of dealers that are overachievers. I don't think you're getting the other 95%.
Max, when I started this company 30 years ago, I thought every loser in the world was going to hire me. But you know what? The dealers that were losers remained losers. It was the dealers that were already doing 500 units that wanted to get to 1,000.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you for making my point more eloquently.
Yeah, it was crazy because when I grew dealerships to the big numbers, it was always dealerships that were already doing big numbers. I just got them to do bigger numbers.
People have this business. It's a very simple business. This business is about retention. It's not about acquisition. If we retain and we lower our churn rates, we will grow our businesses organically. We will do it because if we're doing it right, we're going to get the referral business from the repetition business. That repetition referral business is the highest conversion rate of any of our opportunities. We have to recognize that. That's all part of the process. Well, I was listening to another gentleman on Friday night, and one of the things he talked about, 3 processes. First process is goal setting. Second process was creating a daily plan. And the third one was follow-up. Those were the 3 parts of the process that we were failing on as dealers and salespeople.
Well, see, the difference in that broadcast and this broadcast is that audience was salespeople.
Yeah.
I know that person.
Yeah.
And
but the message is the same.
Overwhelmed. We have such an executive audience here. We've got more dealers and more general managers listening to this show. So we're talking on an entirely different level.
Yes, I agree. But what I'm saying is we're dropping this process, and this whole conversation was about what is the road step or the steps to the sale on the roadmap or the journey to the sale, whatever way you want to call it. It's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. It doesn't start off with the delivery. It never starts off with the delivery. So it's always a step.
Well, there are steps in the sale that you can interchange and move. Like I
yes,
have
you can. Yes, you can. Based on the customer's wants, you can say, okay, the customer doesn't want to walk around. He wants to just drive the car because he has a specific reason why that car has to be the way it is. My wife wants to drive a car first, and the reason why she wants to drive the car first is that her body structure dictates that she can only see a certain way through a car. That windshield header is the most important thing to her, that she can see a stoplight.
It's amazing you would say that, Peter, because when I was teaching sales and when I teach sales, always get the wife to drive first. If it's a husband and wife, traditional marriage, I always want the wife to drive first, because many times if she's sitting in the car and she's doing this number, it doesn't matter. I've had
It's
Bubba
over.
up to his belt buckle in the truck, and she's over there grazing. She's not going to buy. They're not going to buy the car. But if I get the wife to drive the car first, the husband will always drive second.
Yes, but
I mean,
like
just-
I said, you can interchange those steps. Like again, my wife wants to test drive first before the walk around because she couldn't care less about the walk around if she can't see a stoplight. It's plain and simple. So you have to interchange those on the fly. That's where critical thinking comes into play. You have to be able to say, okay, I got to step back and I got to change this process for this customer. But again, you're never going to start with the delivery first. So you have to go down the
you have to get both people involved is what I
Yeah.
was trying to get at, because
Yeah.
I see people, they got Bubba up to his belt buckle in the hood of a truck. Bubba can't buy shit.
No.
You know, I mean, who yeah, Bubba can't buy shit. The check writers over there in the car with their arms crossed.
Exactly. Saying, what the hell are you doing?
Who pays the bills in over 90% of American households? The wife. In a
Exactly.
traditional marriage, the wife generally does the family finances. In some cases, it's the male, but most cases, we know it's the female. So the check writer's over there, and the salesman spending all the time selling the husband.
That's
Just
because the
little-
husband is
little
more
things.
emotional than the wife.
Somebody
I-
write that down. Somebody take a screenshot of that clip and put it out there.
Still,
The
Bubba
husband
can't
is
buy
more
shit.
emotional than the wife because the husband wants and doesn't understand that he can't have.
But listen, I think Peter makes another great point about the customer retention element. And again, this time it's not the technology companies, right? It's the advertising companies, whether it's the advertising agency, whether it's cars.com or any other aggregator, that puts a greater emphasis on customer acquisition as opposed to customer retention. And I dare you, right, to look at any advertising budget in majority of car dealerships, and majority of the advertising dollars are allocated towards acquisition, not towards retention.
Ask a dealer how much they spend on retention advertising. And they'll go,
Yeah.
huh?
Well,
Right.
we're all in agreement about that. I'll take a step further and say I triple dog dare because then you have to. But
How many times have I said we spend a fortune advertising for strangers and we spend no retro budget? I call it, when I'm working with a dealership, I call it retro budget, aimed at your past customers, your best and cheapest source of new business.
Exactly.
We have no retro budget. No, we're advertising for strangers.
Jim,
And
how easy is it to turn around on a used car, a pre-owned car, and say, this car was bought here, serviced here, and we know this car inside and out rather than buying the car from the auction? So why are we not involving that retention and spending the money there and spending it on
retro budget,
everything?
Peter.
age-old
Retro budget.
question, because retention requires loyalty and effort. And it's real easy to click right on
Bobbie,
something.
we did a show on AI this past week, you and me and Jared Kilway.
Yep.
And one thing we talked about, every dealership out there's got 100,000 dead leads in your CRM.
Mhm.
Yep.
Those are living, breathing human beings in your market. Those
Yeah.
are people that tried to buy a car from you at one time or another. Maybe they bought a car somewhere else, but they're still in your market. They have relatives. They're going to trade whatever they bought in at one time or another. They're going to service it. Why are you not retro budget advertising to dead leads?
I'll tell you why. Because unfortunately, the majority of dealerships think that one of two things has to happen. One, it involves human involvement, which isn't necessarily true. And we don't have time for me to advocate either way for that.
1 minute.
The second part of that is that you have dealerships with 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 opportunities coming in every single day when it comes to leads, and they're not answering the ones from this morning. Forget about the ones that are dead from 2 months ago.
I'm not saying that's right, but that is the truth.
We have the technology. Oh, that's
Yeah, we do. I'm so glad you just circle back to that segue.
technology.
Technology comes in, people.
We have the technology to do that. Was,
We're not
this a good? Was this a good show, guys?
awesome. Awesome.
I had fun. Of course, I do a lot of humor. I like to pick on Bobbie, and Bobbie knows when I'm picking on her and when I'm serious.
I'm his favorite, so I accept it.
Yeah, Bobbie is pretty smart for a girl.
Thank you so much. I like to think that same thing about my rest of my audience of men. You know what? The two women to let you guys save us, so we let you guys say things like that, so you choose us.
Everybody wave goodbye to the audience.